Now somebody completely different and something completely different. I'm a little bit nervous to introduce Marcello because it sounds perhaps trivial, but I think for me at least he is not introducible. You will see in a few minutes why. He's one of the contemporary artists I admire most for many, many reasons. And he is one of the contemporary artists who is not so much visible as others. Also, his work is already in many, many collections all over the world, also in very big collections. But we don't see him so often. He was also exhibiting here at the ZKM and very strongly in the Spanish-speaking world. Perhaps I describe him best when I tell you a very short anecdote, if I may. 2 years ago, he was invited by Louis Vuitton to Venice. And Louis Vuitton offered him, or his curator offered him, the palace in Venice to present the work where we see now fragments from Das Kapital, the capital. And he was very nervous about it. And I said to Maya, when I heard about the news, he will not do it. He will find a way to prevent this seduction. And how did he do it? He made a suggestion to Louis Vuitton which was not realizable. He suggested that he wanted to work with drones flying over the palace in Venice and all kinds of things where he knew this is not possible. And of course the reaction was no. The invitation was drawn back and he did not go to Venice and he carried on working on Das Kapital. This is a work he is presenting today and this is part of my admiration, which he works on now since at least, help me Marcello, 18 years. You started in the late 90s, latest. Now we have 2016. As far as I know, there are huge amounts of material he collected during the last 18 years, something like 50 hours of video, of computer-generated material, all kinds of field studies. He will talk about that too, working with biological material. The Kapital, Das Kapital, I interpret you now, I don't describe your work. Das Kapital is some kind of an attempt to write a individual, idiosyncratic political economy of the body. This is how I see the work, and this is something very unique in the world. I don't know anything comparable with that, and we have now the joy to look into some fragments and also into the generation of this project. One thing I should add biographically, which is important perhaps to understand some of the background. Marcello comes from Argentine. We met end of the 90s. He came to Germany and was confronted with huge machinery, especially computer machinery. At this time, the computers were mainly silicon graphics machine. Jeffrey knows what we are talking about. Very heavy machines, expensive, complex software. Within a very short time, he explored this, for him, completely new world and integrated into his work on Das Kapital in a very, very strong way. Since then, he always was switching between simulated work, analog work, all kinds of expressions, performances, which he used to do very strongly in the 90s when he was still in Argentina and in different parts of the world. And when he arrived in Germany, please listen to Marcello Mercado. Afterwards we will have a short time to discuss Das Kapital.
Thank you very much. Oops. Yeah. Thank you very much, Siegfried. And I want to say something also about das Kapital would not be possible to make without the spirit that was in KM in these years, that was very, very happy, very free, 24 hours, very creative, 24 hours, and I forgot that's never. Thank you. So, what we're talking about when we're talking about Das Kapital? Don't ask me because I don't know exactly, but I can tell you, we can talking about that Karl Marx wrote a book. That means that there are gigabytes of genetic information did 6,2 megabytes. This fragment, we are here in potential space because 6,2 megabytes. That's all. That means that we can think in Marx, make it integral. Marx, born, he lived 65 years old, from infinite, trans-infinite. He produced 31.9 megabytes. From this work, we can extract 6,2 megabytes. That is the minus 1. That is why we are here, and we try to analyze what is this things. That is the same question I asked him to me. I am exactly the same. 53, the capital that I produce is 98 gigabytes from I tried to produce the minus 1. I tried to produce das Kapital. Will not be possible, but doesn't matter. It's like this. So, why das Kapital? Why? I don't know. But there was a dictatorship in Argentina, and when come the dictatorship, people hide the books, and they grab the books, and then hide in different strange places. That's why when the dictatorship was finished, I saw people that was graving, and I saw das Kapital, smell with earth, who was with worms. And also I found a book in the bibliothèque from my family, between some soft porn from some family, Colette books, and I was interested in that. So one day when I had the opportunity to have a scholarship, they asked me, what you want to do? And I said, Das Kapital. Well, so Das Kapital had 3 parts till now. The Argentinian part, where I collect performance, typography, graphic work, collection of information with 16mm police, found footage, and I developed the first ideas. I was obsessed with fingers because my family have a clinic, so from kid I was always speaking with workers, and for me as kid I thought that all the families, the women are married with men that some they lost a finger or some horrible things happens. So for me was das the point together with Das Kapital, because in Das Kapital there's a lot of reports of insurance of loss of part of the body. So I was in this first idea because myself I don't have a finger, And the first Kapital was, I react to this tree, but doesn't exist anymore. There was the talking tree. So I put my hand in this talking tree, and I get a card, and he read my situation. And then I was reading das Kapital, and then I put again the hand, and I get this lecture. That was the beginning. Then I put the book in an organ von Reich for a treatment. Then I produced, that took a lot of time, the first part from the opera. That was more than 5 hours, 47 minutes. So you can see the notations. This opera was developed later with the help from Anthony Moore. And then we developed the typography. Typography again with taking the absence, presence like typography, for the video. Of course, never use it. Then, if I will come from some hard images, somebody my door and said, okay, I was in public for you, and I said that your work are very, very hard, and I found this in the garbage. This is police footage and photos. Maybe are you interested? And people believe that I was living with some kind of bodies in my house. So, okay, I received the material, do some graphic things, and yeah, just thinking what could be. And this is the part of this archive that's in the photos. Yeah. The interesting is these photos are about normal criminal with terrorists. We don't know who are who. Then I moved with all this material to Germany. In Germany, I got a wonderful place to work. It was here. It was my office there. There was where you can make the turns for MBIs. And my key, the machines, and I was working only in my Mac. But David came and said, David Larcher, that was my professor, said, no, stop the Mac, come to the Silicon Graphic. And I didn't want at all. So, but he bring me to the Silicon, and I began to work. So that was the work conditions. And even I collect all the travel I did with the U-Bahn. I photography every machine that used it, everything. No, that was the reference from Das Kapital in Napster in this time, in 1999. That was the first hardware that I used. From under that was kaput, this also. And then that was the trace from Das Kapital in the different machines. You cannot see because it's very small, but these are the different versions. I like 23 now. And it's like this. I had this footage, and I transformed in this. How I did this? Okay, I was working in Unix, and Flint also is a reenactment. And all the settings were stored in that. So that store, these are the settings from the images in the space. 250 images in different levels, and how we move the images in the space. So that is the information. What I did is not only take the settings to work the space, but also the settings as image. And I captured this, and I began to transform, to mix in 3D or 2.5. You can see here how a fetus is transformed in some kind of landscape. then become more and more developing. Meanwhile, was very, very hard to the rendering because there was more and more rendering, more and more mixing. And I arrived to the time that I understood that my fellowship will finish and my work will not finish. So I was working with the machine that only had KM, but not me. So I was needing some kind of technology to work in my house. I was interested also, this is das Kapital als error. For example, here I was recording the stock from Taiwan, and then I put this in the hardware that was broken, and then begin to produce other kind of images through experiments. When finished this fellowship, but actually I could go, so thanks to the generosity from the student, another 3 years, but we don't tell anybody. I began to work with bioart because one day he called me a friend in Argentina and said, oh, here is a disaster. I began to make permaculture, and I will build my house, and in the kitchen and the bathroom, I will use worms. And we had said worms. I began to fly because I understood that the worms were the solution for all of what I want. So I said, the worms really want to eat paper. So, for example, this is an example for how you can build an eco-ideology worm composting. So you choose some kind of calendula, you extract the DNA from calendula, and then you put this calendula in worms. What you feed with those worms? Okay, here we use the QR codes. So first, this first group, you put the discourse from Ronald Reagan. The name is A Time for Choosing, against the communists. Ne? A time for choosing, that is this. You can check his test. And I feed the worms with this. The second group, from worms, I build with the first chapter from Das Kapital. Yeah? And then I put together, I did a synthesis, ideological synthesis. And then I put in the holes in Denmark. Then also I work with working with the pulp from the book. No, for example, worms, pulp, to try to, I'm missing coal, to produce some kind of. Here I was feeding the worms, and then I was extracting the DNA from the worms that were eating Das Kapital. And then, with this, I was dropping in all the holes in Cologne. Or I was reading in this kind of labs. No, I did some labs where I could, with the worms, make a compost and produce, with the pulp from Das Kapital, some plants. You can see here. Here, I was in Geneva, and I was reading that Weber, he said that, of course, when Jean Calvin said that loan money is good, that was the basic from capitalism. So I went to the grave from Calvin, and I took the ligustrin and extracted DNA from the ligustrin. And then I mixed the DNA from the ligustrin with oil. And then I took a fragment from Das Kapital, where the chapter 23, where Marx speaks about a report from insurance where 5 people were living in the street Volcan, and these 5 people disappeared for a fire. They don't have a name, they don't have a face. So I have extracting here DNA, I make the mix von Öl mit DNA von Kalben. Hier was in Auschwitz, ich habe probiert, I tried to make a transmission from live transmission that was very difficult in that time, but I'm trying, was a complete disaster. Also, I took some sounds from the trains. There's a sound art part. Here, I had the idea to make a movie with that Kapital, but under a movie. A movie that could be not a 1 hour movie or 2 hours movie. A movie that take a lot of time. That means that I was traveling with the Zug in Köln, and with this DNA from the worms that were eating different chapters from this Kapital, I was depositing in this DNA and pulp in different parts where there is earth and what can grow up something. So there is 14 cameras, traffic cameras in Cologne. So these 14 cameras are transmitting, broadcasting 24 hours. So you can have a very easy movie doing just putting DNA and worms there, and you have now you have a 14 years movie. Then some kind of collage mit fake, mit RTF there, and here, again, worms were eating this Kapital, then in different speed from the boat, I was throwing this DNA into the sea. Also, I was checking how much wind take to read one chapter from das Kapital, the first one. Then I was doing some kind of installation, and then working with the Phytophthora infestans. The Phytophthora infestans war the cause von der Famine in Ireland. So I work with this, and together with the DNA, and in the streets of Cologne, making deposits of some strange bio experiments. Then I kidnap a machine, a test machine, and then I put for a month. Again, throw away, as you see, these are worms that were eating das Kapital. Here, this is what the remains of the Kölnische Kunstverein. There was only a dish, and I was reading das Kapital to this dish, this table. And here in net art, I found a grave. I was looking, find the grave, and then make a small something. What I produce in 3D, I give to Max. When this is some kind of photography. But one day I decide to delete completely the work. And I was recording the delete completely the work. This is, make a copy and destroy it. Completely destroy it, you have more responsibility in this. And that was the wonderful delete from the work. But also decide, okay, here with this to destroy the work. But what happened if I translate completely the work in the book itself? I create a language. The language that means nothing, and I destroy it. So I translate Kapital with a language that doesn't exist completely. without meaning, but very detailed, but no meaning at all. That was the results for the first time in the academy, where I was trying to understand the technology, try to see what is the everyday, where I try to deal with this kind of software. So I was recording everything, every time. You will see, people from KM will remember this wonderful moments in wonderful places. Then part of the documentary, part of the Das Kapital is a documentary, but I tried to develop in a language that doesn't exist. You said nothing, and with text that also said nothing. So always there is a way to tell a story, but tell this story completely nothing. You are watching, you are joking, you are not saying nothing. And yet, I will show you the English, Das Kapital. This is a fragment of this video.
Short fragments out of roughly 40 to 50 hours of material which is existing. The last 5 minutes we have seen. Thanks a lot for the presentation of your Kapital. Anybody has direct responses, comments? What perhaps, I mean, I know that you cannot really answer this question, Marcello, but what I was always extremely fascinated by is the way you were working with these highly abstract machines, or with these machines which produce so much abstraction. Every time when I see this simulations, this completely computational material, I am completely taken by the physicality, by the enormous corporeality of the abstract material you are producing. And at the beginning I thought, okay, it's the way he works with the sound and he creates some kind of an atmosphere, but it's not. You have a very special relationship to the computer. Is it possible to describe that?
Yeah.
How you work?
Yeah. I will tell you the truth. When David bring me to this big computer, and I didn't understand anything. He said, you make an here, and then, yeah, you work it. But I couldn't understand nothing. It was all in German. And not only that, I asked for help to technician, and then say, okay, in very German way, he bring me the books. And the book to understand that was like this, like 3 big books. And I didn't understand anything. So the solution was the Tesafilm, or Scotch tape, where I began to prove all the buttons with Tesafilm, Scotch film, and then try combination. And then this was produced me, and the second effect was David. David was very generous. He bring me to Saint-Oli to learn in Montpellier, and everybody was complete generous with the information. But it was Tesafilm.
So it was a very special kind of ars combinatoria, which you were practicing.
Yeah.
Anybody? Yes, please, Kamal.
Just one film. I guess well, we met in Cologne, '98, and you were starting to work on the project, and I'm really so fascinated to see it again. So I'm interested to hear more about your emotional relation to this process of basically existing through one work.
I produce other works, but they are overhyped for Kapital. But for example, this work is like, it's not das Kapital. For me, it's a matrix. It's matrix, because through this work, you can produce other works. You had a formula, in a way. So, for example, one of the work that I produced was Van Gogh variations. I took all the yellow tones from the 7 sunflowers from Van Gogh, and then in digital with Photoshop. So I had all the algorithms. So I make the list from all the around 400 different tones, and then I print on paper, and I left to the worms. The worms were eating the dust, and then I did a good compost, and I put sunflower seeds in this compost and produced sunflowers. And then I extract the DNA from the sunflower. They come from the compost, from the flora, blah, blah, blah. So, or flying drones on Holland, where I can produce 3D models where the drones were programmed with different heights, with a tone, and then produce 3D. Of course, I did other works, but Kapital was always there, always, in a way, hiding everything.
I should have added perhaps at the beginning, Marcello is also painting madly. Tons of paintings he has done in the last decades. He has done beautiful artist books, which hardly anybody has seen. There's a wonderful artist book which I would like to show to Hans on Cézanne. He was circling around Cézanne's famous hill, and this is always connected with your work. You go there to the place, you have to feel the place, and then he started his own paintings on the movements around the hill. And this is a very large artist book. How large is it, Marcello?
So, like this, and 30 kilos.
30 kilos.
Yeah. But interesting is the story, because Cézanne painted 16 versions from the Saint-Victoire mountain. And then, years later, when Picasso was old, he said, my only master was Cézanne. So one day, he came and said to some dealer, Bollard, I bought I forget it, Saint-Victoire. And I said, which version from the 16? No. I bought the mountain, said Picasso. So he bought a house in the mountain, and when he moved there, he could not paint anymore. He was blocked. So he painted just only the bathroom for his wife, or nothing else. So they moved again to other small town, and there he died. But for a bureaucracy things, he could not be buried in this town. So he moved again to the mountain. So he is there. So it's interesting, because at the end of the mountain is the grave from Cézanne. So both are there. So I went to the mountain, I record, and every stop I took some kind of grass, and then I extracted DNA later, and I was drawing there. And so it's a book where you can see the drawings from different perspectives, going from the grave from Picasso to the grave of Cézanne, going through the mountain that they both, in a way, were connected.
And the book is connected with a QR code. Every page has a QR code, and when you put your mobile on the QR code, you can see at which spot he has extracted the material from the plants. Yeah. Ludmila, but we have to take care for the time. Please, short.
Yeah, I'll try. Thank you very much. It was really absolutely brilliant and fascinating, especially the way you also present your work. It's really fascinating performance you showed. I wanted to ask...
This was not a performance. No, misunderstanding.
It was. Where is this, let's say, fascination or idea with worms is coming from? Because, I mean, you could read it as, in a way, it's a kind of real post-communist approach to the capital, where you are dealing in the role of the capitalist who is exploiting labor power of the worms in order to produce a kind of added value. I mean, of course, it's a joke, but I mean, I wanted that, or you're just like making a kind of total reification of your lifetime. It's like really, the work is Verdinglichung of your like obsession with the process of creation itself.
Short, please.
Yeah. So, but the question is, this obsession with worms and the idea of like using worms and to produce a compost, is it like making a metaphor literally, or what was your inspiration? What was behind this?
Was this bags that they put? They had the books, and it was for the worms. So it was reality. It was no metaphor. It was reality. But then I realized that in DNA, of course, in the right process, you can hide a lot of information. You can store a lot of information, and DNA is the big next where you can all this information store. So that's what idea, to store, to preserve in any way the paintings from Van Gogh, preserve that book, a book from Kapital, and because also I think that we live in very, very dangerous moments, and you need to have your earth. And my opinion, you place where you can be, you grow your salad and things like this. A very stupid idea, but no, I think that you need to have your salad, and you compost.
Good. One day there might be an exhibition with your DNA works, which I would very much like to see in a museum. One of his beautiful work of drawing is that he visited Wolf Forstell's grave and Fassbinder's grave, and he took out the DNA of the plants on the different graves, and then he mixed the two. So he created something which Kamal did with filmic methods. He created a reality which, of course, does not exist in the real. Forstell and Fassbinder mixing their bodies. Yeah. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Marcello.